In my previous life, Leo Vance's company was on the verge of bankruptcy. His greatest rival, a man named Ethan Hayes, came to me with a proposal to join forces and take over the company. Back then, I was still naive and held a romanticized view of love, so I rejected his offer without a second thought. I chose to help Leo, my childhood friend, navigate through his financial crisis instead. We had an understanding that we would get engaged once everything was settled. But on the very day we were supposed to discuss our engagement, Leo pushed me from the top of a tall building. My body was smashed into a pile of broken flesh on the pavement below. It was a stunningly cruel betrayal in return for all the kindness and support I had offered him. I remember his words, twisted with scorn, as he looked down on me. All this just to force me to marry you? I'd rather live in poverty my entire life than spend it trapped in your rotten, money-soaked world. It wasn't until that final, horrifying moment that I finally understood Leo had never let go of his so-called first love, Isabella Reed. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself miraculously transported back in time to the exact day Leo's company first faced its crisis. So when Ethan Hayes, his arch-rival, made the same offer to me once more, I simply smiled and said, "Sure, we can work together." Even so, Leo was still my beloved childhood friend in this timeline, at least on the surface. A part of me needed to test the waters. I sent him a carefully crafted message. "Leo, come pick me up. I'm cornered by debt collectors in your company building. It's extremely urgent." Then my phone rang. The caller ID showed Leo Vance, the man I had secretly loved for years. An hour ago, if he had called, I would have dropped everything and run to his side without a second thought. But now, I calmly declined the call. I looked at the man sitting across from me in the quiet cafe and gave him a slight wink. "Mr. Hayes, you just said you wanted to take over the Vance Group with me. You certainly have a bold appetite." Ethan Hayes sat across from me with his hands folded on the table, exuding an aura of elegance and quiet authority. "Miss Shaw," he said, his voice even. "This is a very appealing deal, don't you think?" Of course it was. Leo was a failure who couldn't seem to accomplish anything. In just 2 short years, he had managed to drag the once prestigious Vance Group from an industry leader down to a cash-burning mess. But even a dying beast has some meat left on its bones. Though the company had fallen, it still held valuable resources worth sinking one's teeth into. If I joined forces with Ethan now, we could crush Leo together. It would be a mutually beneficial move with no apparent downside for either of us. With that thought, I smiled faintly. "Your offer is certainly tempting, Mr. Hayes. But sometimes loyalty means more than profit." A flicker of disappointment crossed Ethan's eyes as he asked, "So you're turning me down?" I tapped the table lightly with my index finger. "No," I clarified. "What I meant is, I'm in. But Leo is my beloved childhood friend, so you'll have to raise the price." While I was negotiating with Ethan, Leo called me nonstop. In less than 30 minutes, I had over 100 missed calls. Ethan glanced at my phone screen, and a subtle smirk, barely a few pixels of movement on his lips, appeared. I picked up my car keys, gave a small wave, and said, "Please expect an update from me soon. This is business, after all." Ethan didn't say anything as I left. I drove to the Vance Group building and observed the scene from a distance. Debt collectors and bank officers had completely surrounded the place. There wasn't even a small gap to slip through. Just then, Leo's name flashed on my phone again. His voice was trembling. "Clara, are you here?" "I am," I replied calmly. "But there are too many people. I can't get in. You'll have to find your own way out." Leo sounded desperate. "There are people all around me. How am I supposed to get out?" I kept my voice steady and cool. "Maybe you could jump from the top floor. If you jump, the company's crisis will probably be solved." Leo shouted in anger. "This isn't the time to joke!" But I wasn't joking at all. I truly wanted him dead. In my past life, it was at this very place that Leo had pushed me off the building. I could still remember the twisted, hideous look on his face as he did it. "I thought you helped me because you were kind," he had sneered. "Turns out you had your own agenda. What a vile way to repay kindness with betrayal. Keep dreaming. The only woman I'll marry is Isabella. In those few seconds before I hit the ground, countless memories flashed through my mind. I wanted to tell Leo the truth, that things weren't what he thought. I wanted to marry him not for any benefit or ulterior motive, but because I genuinely loved him. I also wanted to warn him about Ethan Hayes, who had once approached me with this very plan. Unfortunately, it was all too late. My body slammed hard into the concrete, sending a cloud of dust into the air. Blood gushed from my mouth and nose, and a searing pain tore through my insides, as if every organ had been shredded. 10 minutes later, Leo finally arrived at the scene, escorted by his bodyguards. He didn't even glance in my direction. He turned to his assistant and said coldly, "Call the police. Clara Shaw committed suicide out of guilt for embezzling company funds. Let the authorities handle it." Only then did I realize that Leo wasn't just ungrateful. He had planned to pin the blame on me all along. The last thing I saw before everything faded was Leo hurriedly getting into his luxury car, passionately embracing the girl sitting in the passenger seat. I knew that girl. It was Isabella Reed, the same unattainable woman Leo had always pined for. After everything that had happened, we had come full circle, and once again, I was nothing but a naive, innocent sacrifice. Luckily, heaven showed mercy and gave me a second chance. This time, I would make Leo Vance pay for everything he did. Perhaps I had gone quiet for too long on the phone, or maybe Leo finally realized that he was at a disadvantage and shouldn't have lost his temper with me. In any case, his tone began to shift. "I'm sorry, Clara. I lost it just now. You know how desperate things are for me. Those debt collectors outside, if they had the chance, they'd eat me alive. I really have no choice. If this were my previous life, I, his ever-loyal lapdog, would have rushed in to solve all his problems without hesitation, probably by handing over a huge sum of my family's money. But now, since he didn't ask, I didn't offer. When he finally spoke again, I feigned surprise and yawned lazily. "Oh, it's that dangerous around you. Then maybe I should leave." No, wait, don't go," Leo finally panicked. "Just help me create a distraction, please." I exited the parking garage and casually walked toward the main entrance, which successfully diverted the media's attention. As I kept the reporters busy, Leo bolted out from the underground garage and ran toward my car. This was the first time I had seen him since my rebirth. The immense financial pressure had reduced him to a shadow of his former self. A few strands of white hair had already appeared at his temples, and dark circles hung under his eyes. He looked utterly exhausted. In the past, I would have asked after his health, tried to comfort him, and worried that he might do something foolish. But now, I finally understood that feeling sorry for a man is the beginning of your own misfortune. "Clara, I must look like a mess right now, don't I?" Leo said with a bitter smile, his whole body radiating defeat. "Just a bit," I replied flatly. Leo went on. "I've already poured everything, literally everything my parents left me, into covering the company's debts. Now I'm completely broke. I have nothing left. It's really miserable." No matter how pitifully he spoke, I simply nodded along, non-committal and detached. I didn't take the initiative to offer help, and I certainly didn't take responsibility for his problems. Eventually, Leo couldn't keep up the act. He looked at me with those soft, pleading eyes of his, full of fake emotion. "Clara, you're all I have now. You're not going to leave me, are you?" I smiled faintly. "Of course not." But before he could breathe a sigh of relief, I continued. "Because we're just friends, right? No business ties, no emotional entanglements. So really, there's nothing to leave behind." Leo suddenly grabbed my arm. "Clara, stop joking around. I've always known you had a crush on me. Just admit it. I won't make fun of you." Screech! I slammed on the brakes. A car rammed straight into the passenger side. Leo was knocked unconscious on the spot by the deploying airbag. The car crash was something I had planned. I just didn't expect Leo's luck to be so tough. He only ended up with a mild concussion. A few days in the hospital and he would be fine. The very first thing he did after waking up from surgery was grab my hand. "Don't blame yourself," he said, his voice weak. "I know it was an accident. I don't hold it against you." I didn't pull my hand back. I simply curved my lips into a flawless smile. To secure funding from the Shaw family, Leo Vance was now willing to swallow his disgust toward me and pretend to be affectionate. That couldn't have been easy for him. Fortunately, Isabella Reed arrived just in time. She floated into the hospital room in a flowing white dress, looking graceful and pristine, like a lotus untouched by dust. She said nothing but stared pointedly at our tightly clasped hands. Leo instantly let go and scrambled to his feet. "Baby, Isabella, what are you doing here?" I casually interjected. "After the crash, my phone broke. I needed to call for help, so I borrowed yours." That's when I noticed your top pinned contact was Isabella Reed, so I gave her a quick ring. Isabella nodded, as serene and aloof as ever. This was an awkward situation. One woman was his supposed true love, the other his financial lifeline. And now Leo was stuck between the two of us, torn and cornered. I picked up my handbag. "I'll leave you two to talk. I'm heading out. Billings is to the right after you exit. Don't forget to pay the surgery fee." But neither Leo nor Isabella had enough money to scrape together even $200, so paying the hospital bills was out of the question. Leo looked at me. "Clara, you know how it is. Can you lend me a bit of money?" I pointed at Isabella. "She doesn't have any?" 10 years ago, we were all still in high school. Back then, it made sense that Isabella, who got into a prestigious private school on a poverty scholarship, was short on cash. But 10 years later, we were all supposed to be adults who had weathered the real world. You'd think they'd be able to pull together a few thousand at least. But of course, I knew the truth. Since graduating from college, Isabella hadn't worked a single day. Her food, clothes, and everything else had all been paid for by Leo. And Leo had never seen a problem with that. In fact, he wanted someone like her, someone who depended on him entirely. That $10,000 Leo wired to Isabella every month was nothing for a family as wealthy as the Vances used to be. But dreams, no matter how beautiful, eventually come to an end. The Vance family was bankrupt now. With no more financial support, what was Isabella going to do? I guess I had only myself to blame for being too soft-hearted, too wealthy, and too blind to see Leo's true nature. It was bad enough that I supported him like a fool. It turns out I'd also been footing the bill for his little mistress all along. Isabella's face flushed red, as if she'd been insulted. "I never cared about money. I've always treated it like dirt. I never even tried to save any." I looked her up and down, taking in her outfit. She was dressed head to toe in custom designer pieces. The handbag dangling from her wrist was easily worth 6 figures. Someone like that dares to say money means nothing to them? Leo was starting to realize it too. He shot Isabella a look tinged with resentment. He'd poured so much money into her over the years. If she had even a shred of business sense, if she had saved or invested any of it, they wouldn't be in such a hopeless situation now. In the end, Leo wrote me a formal IOU and borrowed exactly $10,000, which barely covered his medical bills. As for the Vance Group's massive debt, they were still several financial milestones short. Leo, the worthless mess that he was, hid out in the hospital and refused to show his face. Isabella knew absolutely nothing about business, so if they had let her handle things, she probably would have caused even more damage. But she was Leo's dream girl, his one and only white moonlight. Once she said she wanted to help, Leo had no reason to refuse. Soon, Isabella was parachuted into the company and installed as the acting CEO of the entire Vance Group. She was beautiful, elegant, and had a presence that turned heads. Many employees started referring to her as some kind of goddess sent to save the sinking company. And Isabella believed it too. With a grand wave of her hand, she announced sweeping reforms to ease employee burdens, abolishing clock-in and clock-out rules, giving everyone a floating holiday for the new year, and even promising free housing with no utility bills. "As long as you stay with the Vance Group through this crisis," she declared, "there will be massive rewards ahead." It all sounded great on paper. The only problem? Isabella forgot one small detail. The company's bank account was already empty. At first, the staff was genuinely motivated, but not even 2 days passed before people started showing up late, leaving early, or requesting vacation. When it came time to assign real work, there wasn't a single reliable person to be found. The only way to maintain operations was to keep shifting the burden downward, piling more and more pressure on the lower ranks. The remaining employees were miserable and soon began submitting their own vacation requests. In the end, the only ones left in the entire company were the janitors and security guards pretending to work while doing practically nothing. The most ridiculous part was when several employees actually approached Isabella to request reimbursement for rent. "Miss Reed, you promised to arrange housing for us," one of them said, "but we haven't seen a single apartment, so we rented places near the office ourselves. Can you have finance reimburse us?" When the bills came in, they were all for luxury apartments with 5-digit monthly rents. Isabella nearly passed out from shock, her face turning pale. "What do you mean by this?" The employees looked puzzled. "Weren't you the one who made the promise? Come on, sign off on the reimbursement forms. We've got another vacation day tomorrow." But the company had long since turned into a sinking ship full of holes. Thanks to Isabella's disastrous management, the Vance Group, already on the brink of collapse, was now speeding full throttle straight toward ruin. When Leo learned about the company's actual condition, he practically lost his mind. He didn't even care that I was there visiting him in the hospital. He lashed out at Isabella in a fit of rage. "Are you running a business or a charity? You've burned through what little we had left." Isabella's eyes brimmed with tears. "I was just trying to boost morale." "What morale? Who needs you to do that?" Leo exploded, his words coming out sharp and fast. "What was I thinking, falling for someone as clueless and useless as you?" Isabella burst into tears, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. But tears were meaningless now. The Vance family couldn't afford another catastrophe. With no other options, Leo came to me, hat in hand, asking me to join the company as a senior executive. He gently placed his palm over the back of my hand, his eyes full of calculated sincerity. "Clara, please, you're the only one I can trust. I really need your help." I turned him down politely. "I still have my own family business to manage. Besides, you've got Isabella by your side. She was always top of the class. I'm sure handling company matters is nothing for her." Leo leaned in, speaking with feeling. "You misunderstood. There's nothing between me and Isabella. It's just a business arrangement. She's an employee, nothing more." I nearly laughed. If I hadn't seen them kissing with my own eyes in my last life, I might have believed him again. But I didn't call him out on the lie. Letting the prey think they're the hunter, manipulating them from the shadows, is its own kind of sport. I tilted my head as if considering it. Leo seized the moment and pressed harder. "Just say yes. If my parents were still alive, they would be so grateful to you." "I don't agree." Before I could even respond, Isabella jumped in, shouting in protest. She was wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, her face almost completely hidden. It turned out she'd gotten suspicious when she heard Leo was meeting with me, so she had followed him here in disguise and had been eavesdropping from the start. When she heard Leo wanted to replace her with me, she lost it, and her calm, graceful persona crumbled in an instant. She stormed over and shouted, "Clara Shaw, do you even have any shame? You've been chasing Leo since high school. Some dogs just never learn to stop eating crap. You're rich, aren't you? Why not just go buy yourself a few male escorts? Why fight me for Leo?" I blinked, then looked innocently at Leo. His face darkened with embarrassment. He grabbed Isabella roughly and pulled her behind him. "That's enough. What would you know about running a company? Clara is incredibly capable. Right now, she's the only one who can save us." Isabella wouldn't back down. "What's so great about her, huh? Just because she's got more money than I do? Admit it, you've changed. You just want to climb into the Shaw family." "Dream on," she sneered. "Don't forget, I was the one who stayed by your side." "Will you stop sabotaging me?" Leo snapped. Then, in a moment of pure rage, he slapped Isabella hard across the face. I stood there, stunned. He just hit her. Isabella's hysterical scream drew the attention of nearby customers who turned to stare in our direction. Leo had always cared deeply about appearances, but now Isabella had made a public scene and humiliated him. Rather than back down, he doubled down and told her to get lost. Clutching her reddened cheek, Isabella glared at us and spat out, "You two just wait. I'll make sure you both pay for this." Then she stormed out of the cafe. Leo stared at her retreating figure, then collapsed back into his chair, covering his eyes with the back of his hand. I couldn't help but find it all absurd. You were the one who slapped her. You were the one who kicked her out, and now you're playing the victim? For whose benefit? After sulking for a few minutes, Leo snapped back to reality and apologized. Isabella's always been overbearing. Just because we went to high school together, she constantly meddled in company affairs. Honestly, I've put up with her for far too long. Right now, Clara, only you can save the Vance Group. I tried to decline again and again, but Leo was relentless, insisting I take on this flaming mess of a job. In the end, I sighed. Well, our families are still tied together by blood and history, after all. I guess I don't really have a choice. Leo's face lit up with delight, but I caught the glint of calculation in his eyes. I knew exactly what he was planning. He'd never pay me a salary or share any profits. On the contrary, he expected to use the Shaw family's resources and connections to build himself a golden bridge to safety. Unfortunately for him, I was no longer the naive idiot from my past life. Leo Vance. Let's see who outplays whom. He appointed me as vice president of the Vance Group, placing the company's operations entirely in my hands. Meanwhile, he fully embraced a leisurely life, fishing at the reservoir, taking long walks, doing everything but work. He played the role of a hands-off boss to perfection. So I became the true authority at the Vance Group. Outwardly, I handled every issue with diligence and loyalty. Behind the scenes, I quietly poached top talent and key clients, transferring them to the Shaw and Hayes companies. Ethan Hayes didn't disappoint me either. He cracked several of the Vance Group's core technologies and sold them to me at a discount. Together, we stripped the company clean. Soon, the Vance Group was nothing but an empty shell, and Leo had no clue. He remained lost in his fantasy of making easy money with no effort. Then came the day of reckoning. The board of shareholders convened and officially declared bankruptcy. Leo was dragged into the meeting in a panic, completely clueless, but he was confident. As long as I testified on his behalf, he believed everything would work out. "Why am I even here?" he asked, reeking of alcohol. A bright lipstick stain marked his collar, a garish color that Isabella would never wear. "Didn't I say you were handling everything?" When his eyes met mine, Leo flinched and quickly rubbed at the lipstick mark. "Don't get the wrong idea," he mumbled. "I was entertaining clients. I only drank to take some pressure off your shoulders. I ended up drinking until I threw up." I smiled faintly. "Wow, that must have been really hard on you." "For you, I'd endure anything," he said, ignoring the others in the room as he fed me sweet, nauseating words. I pointed to a chair. "Have a seat. The meeting's about to start." Leo straightened his back proudly, fully expecting to be showered with praise. In his mind, he was the hero who had led the company back from the brink. He deserved admiration and applause, but the expected compliments never came. The shareholders looked at him with nothing but contempt and smug satisfaction. "Mr. Vance, please sign here," one of them said. "The company is entering formal bankruptcy proceedings. President Hayes from Hayes Enterprises will be arriving shortly to complete the acquisition." Leo looked like he'd been struck by lightning. "What did you say? Ethan Hayes is buying my company?" The answer was obvious. No one even bothered to respond. Leo spun around and stared at me, his eyes burning. "What the hell is going on?" I shrugged and gave a helpless smile. "I sent you the email. You never replied." Of course, he had been too busy partying in nightclubs and bars to check a single work message. "But even if that's true," Leo stammered, "how could things have gotten this bad? We shouldn't be bankrupt." I pulled out a thick stack of financial reports and threw them onto the table. "The company owes the bank several $100 million. I've done everything I can. There's no saving it." "But can't the Shaw family cover that amount?" Leo blurted out. The moment the words left his mouth, he immediately regretted them. Some things should be kept buried. Say them out loud and they instantly rot. I turned to him coldly. "And what does my family's money have to do with you?" Everyone in the room was watching. Sweat started to bead on Leo's forehead. "Don't get me wrong, what I meant was, maybe there's still hope for the company if you're willing to marry me." Before I could respond, a cool, commanding voice rang out from the doorway. Ethan Hayes strode into the conference room, followed by a group of nervous-looking board members. The other shareholders all stood up to greet their new potential backer with flattery and forced smiles. Leo, on the other hand, had just been dealt the final blow. His company was gone, his ego shattered. Add that to the booze and debauchery he'd been drowning in, and the man who now sat before us was nothing but a shriveled shell. He looked 10 years older than he had just weeks ago. The contrast between him and Ethan, who was taller, sharper, and in complete control, was a dagger to Leo's pride. "Ethan Hayes, who let you in? Get the hell out!" Leo snapped. "And the rest of you useless fools, don't just stand there. Get back to work." His outburst was pathetic. Nobody moved. Why would they? Working under Leo meant hunger and chaos. Employees didn't care who the boss was, they just wanted to get paid. Leo was seething, furious that no one listened. He slumped in the executive chair and refused to move. Ethan didn't bother arguing. He simply had someone call the police. Leo tried to resist, but the debt he owed was astronomical. If he didn't hand over control of the company, he was facing prison. When forced to choose between pride and freedom, Leo didn't hesitate. He chose freedom. He signed the handover agreement with a resentful scowl, muttering something about ambitious young men always starting from nothing. When it was all over, he waved at me. "Clara, let's go. I had my assistant rent us an apartment. You can just help clean it up a bit." I stepped back 2 paces. "When did I ever say I was going with you?" Leo froze. "If you don't go with me, then where will you go?" I smiled brightly. "Your family went bankrupt, Leo. Mine didn't. Obviously, I'm going back to my parents' villa." The realization that I wouldn't be living in misery with him finally hit, and Leo began to panic. "You said you'd help me rebuild. You can't abandon me now?" How ridiculous. In my past life, I ignored my parents' objections and moved into a crummy rental apartment with him. We lived in hardship. I'd wake up before dawn to haul inventory and collapse into bed after midnight, exhausted. My heartbroken parents wired me a large sum of money. I was thrilled and naively gave all of it to Leo. He drained every last drop of my family's resources, then turned around and kicked me aside. And now this man had the audacity to ask why I was abandoning him. Anger flared in me. "What do I owe you? Why should I suffer with you?" Leo looked stunned but held his ground. "Didn't you say you liked me? I agreed to marry you. If we just get through this rough patch, I'll give you anything you want. Isn't there a saying, a good wife helps her husband fulfill his ambition?" "Then am I the gold in that proverb?" I scoffed. "Sorry, I already have my own gold. I don't need your crumbs." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Ethan's car still parked by the curb. I needed to go talk to him about how we'd continue our collaboration. Leo followed my gaze and spotted the car too. His face twisted with rage. "It's him, isn't it? Ethan Hayes seduced you. No wonder I couldn't stand that guy back in school," he spat. "I always had a bad feeling about him." Leo and Ethan had graduated from the same high school. Ethan was better looking, came from a wealthier family, and had always been the center of attention. Leo was insanely jealous. He felt like Ethan had stolen all the spotlight. Now that old bitterness was boiling over, fueled by failure, envy, and humiliation. "Let me go!" I shouted, trying to shake him off. "I won't!" Leo growled, gripping my arm tighter. "What's so great about Ethan Hayes?" He was practically shouting now. "What did he do to wrap you around his finger?" The more he spoke, the more emotional he became. Eventually, his voice even carried a hint of genuine feeling. "Don't let a few favors fool you. I know exactly how men think. Ethan doesn't actually like you. He just wants the Shaw family's power." I had calmed down by then. I looked him in the eye and asked, "Then what about you?" Leo straightened up, caught off guard. I really like you, Clara. I do." "Then how do you explain Isabella Reed?" I shot back. "She told me herself she was pregnant with your child." Leo panicked and insisted it was all Isabella's doing. "She came on to me. It was an accident. I mean, why else would I sleep with some broke student if she hadn't thrown herself at me?" He stepped closer. "Clara, I get it now. A lasting marriage takes equal footing. I don't care about your past with Ethan, and you shouldn't bring up Isabella anymore. Let's just build a future together, okay?" His shamelessness was beyond anything I could have imagined. I slapped him across the face and climbed into Ethan's car. Ethan was reading over a contract when I got in. Seeing me, he handed it over. I reviewed the document carefully. Everything looked in order. "Don't forget the cut you promised me," I said. "Of course, to a successful partnership," Ethan replied with a faint smile, starting the engine. Leo hobbled after us, limping behind the car like a stray dog. The only thing missing was a thunderstorm to make the scene more pathetic. Ethan glanced in the rearview mirror and grinned slightly, clearly in a good mood. He dropped me off at my family's home and then went straight back to work. My parents were already waiting anxiously. They had heard whispers about the Vance family's looming bankruptcy and had warned me repeatedly not to get involved. What they hadn't expected was for me to come home not as a ruined woman living in a rental, but with 60% of the former Vance Group shares in my possession. When they saw I hadn't been mistreated, they finally relaxed. Then they began discussing what to do about Leo. "Leo is a child we've watched grow up," my dad said. "Now that his family's gone bankrupt and he doesn't even have a place to stay, maybe we should lend him one of our apartments." "What do you think, Clara?" I immediately objected. "He's got 2 working legs. He can find a place himself." "Mom, Dad, I really think you should stay out of the Vance family's business. What if he asks you for startup money? Would you actually give it to him?" The truth was, our families hadn't been close in years. Ever since Uncle and Aunt Vance passed away, Leo had stopped visiting, even on holidays. He didn't even bother to send a New Year's text. My parents never said it out loud, but I knew they felt hurt. And yet, I had been the idiot, blindly determined to marry him, dragging my parents through all that pain. I couldn't even imagine how they must have felt when they heard I had jumped to my death because of him. Now, seeing me go after Leo with no mercy, my parents found it strange but didn't question it too much. In the world of business, allies today could become enemies tomorrow. As long as I stayed safe and the company ran smoothly, they were content to leave the rest alone. But Leo wasn't giving up. He started lurking outside my house, waiting to pounce whenever I came out. One morning, he rushed over as soon as I stepped outside. "You're finally willing to see me," he gasped. "Just hear me out." I signaled the bodyguards. "Get rid of him." They moved in at once. Leo's face was shoved into the pavement. He looked absolutely pathetic, but still he stretched his arm out toward me. "Clara, I have something for you." I told the guards to let him go. With my arms crossed, I looked down at him, my voice flat. "What is it?" Leo slowly got up from the ground, inhaling sharply through clenched teeth. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small package. Bit by bit, he unwrapped it until finally, in his trembling hands, lay a national ID card and a household registration booklet. Leo looked at me with complete confidence as he said, "I brought my ID. We can go register our marriage right now. I know this has been your dream for a long time, and I'm ready to make it come true for you. Baby, let's go." I couldn't help it. I immediately doubled over and dry heaved on the spot. The look on Leo's face was an absolute mess, like someone had dumped an entire spice rack onto his expression. Embarrassed, confused, offended, all at once. But he was still so self-absorbed, so convinced of his own charm that he didn't think I was repulsed by him. "No," he thought. "There must be some hidden reason. You're not pregnant, are you?" he asked, his voice dropping. "Who is it? Was it Ethan Hayes?" A vein popped on Leo's forehead, his jaw clenched so hard I could hear his teeth grinding. "How dare he touch what's mine? I swear he's dead." I narrowed my eyes, my voice ice cold. "Say one more disgusting word and I'll rip your mouth apart." Maybe it was the intensity in my tone, but Leo shrank back slightly and muttered under his breath, "Slut and bastard." The bodyguards beat him without hesitation, then dragged him out like garbage and dumped him outside the gate. He scrambled away like a wild dog in retreat. I watched him stumble off and could only sneer. Just because I didn't have time to deal with him now didn't mean I was going to let him go. The memory of him pushing me from that building in my past life still burned fresh in my mind. He would pay in blood. It was the only way to erase the rage in my heart, but Leo was even more shameless than I expected. When begging failed, he turned to threats. He sent me a text. "You wouldn't want the world to know you're pregnant out of wedlock, would you? Transfer me $10 million or I'll ruin your reputation." I responded with one word, scram. Furious, Leo turned to the lowest tactic, media slander. He rounded up a group of third-rate tabloid reporters to smear my name. Shocking. Heiress allegedly pregnant before marriage. Guess who the father is? Then he showed up on camera, playing the victim. Tears streamed down his face as he cried about betrayal and heartbreak. Clara Shaw and I were engaged since childhood. I always treated her like my fiancée. I planned to marry her once I was stable, but after I went bankrupt, she couldn't stand the poverty and ran off with Ethan Hayes. When I demanded an explanation, I was beaten and humiliated. I even saw her burying her own child right in front of me. As a man, how can I swallow this injustice? Please, someone stand up for me. He even pulled out a crumpled old piece of paper, our so-called marriage agreement, written when we were 6 during a game of house. On it were the scribbled words, "When I turn 18, I'll marry Leo." And Leo had written, "I'll marry Clara as promised." He bawled in front of the camera like it was real, even managing to conjure a bubble of snot. Unbelievably, people actually bought it. Outraged internet users flooded my family's company page, calling me heartless and disloyal and demanding a boycott of our products. Even Ethan got dragged into the mess and was branded as a home-wrecking mistress boy. My parents were alarmed and carefully asked me, "Clara, are you two dating?" I laughed. Ethan and I have a purely transactional partnership. There's no such thing as messy emotions involved. But still, he was the other central figure in this storm, a man connected to both our families. I had to clear things up, so I reached out. "Mr. Hayes, are you free? Can we meet?" In his office, Ethan shook my hand and listened as I detailed Leo's desperate tactics. He paused for a moment, then gave a calm smile. Understood. I didn't ask what Ethan planned to do to destroy Leo. He was Leo's lifelong rival. I was sure he had more than enough evidence to crush him. Since everything was settled, I turned to leave. "Wait," Ethan called out behind me. I paused. "Anything else?" Ethan drew in a deep breath. "Have you ever considered, maybe we could make what Leo said come true?" Was that a roundabout confession? I smiled and shook my head. A lie is still a lie, Ethan. No matter how pretty it sounds, it'll never become the truth. After all, having been reborn into this second life, I had finally realized what I truly wanted most. I wanted a career. I wanted my own name on the list of the richest, not to stand silently behind some man as his beautiful, invisible wife. Ethan didn't press the issue again. Instead, he redirected his energy toward Leo, and it was clear he wanted him dead just as much as I did. He didn't waste time defending himself against Leo's smears. He took the opportunity to dig up every skeleton in Leo's closet. Photos of him getting drunk in nightclubs, records of him embezzling company funds, and proof of him exploiting his employees. Then came the rumors. Some even claimed that the car accident that killed Leo's parents was orchestrated by Leo himself. Before long, Leo was buried under a landslide of negative press. No one believed a word he said anymore. Ethan even paid off Leo's secretary and Isabella to publicly confirm his chaotic personal life and that the company's downfall was entirely his own doing. Online opinion flipped fast. "I used to work at that company," someone posted. "The boss made us work overtime for free and constantly withheld wages. Nothing he says is credible." Another added, "After the company went bankrupt, he still owed us 3 months of salary. If it weren't for President Shaw and Vice President Hayes taking over, we'd all be out on the streets." Leo's just clinging to his so-called childhood sweetheart to mooch off a rich heiress, and when she refused, he went and spread filthy rumors. Disgusting. Exactly. I saw Miss Shaw the other day at the gym after work. She's glowing. 0 signs of pregnancy. Leo's just making stuff up. Faced with growing public outrage, Leo panicked. He hadn't expected to come out of this looking worse. Instead of gaining sympathy, he'd shot himself in the foot. He tried to run, planned to skip town and lay low for a while, but it was too late. Ethan and I had both reported him to the police for defamation. As prominent taxpayers, our claims were taken seriously. The police moved quickly and arrested Leo. After he got out of jail, he still wouldn't give up. He started harassing me again, demanding I give him an explanation. I didn't bother responding. I just sent my people to deal with it. He was beaten up and tossed right back into prison. After 2 arrests, Leo finally stopped provoking me. He decided he'd start from scratch, rebuild his fortune, and take revenge on me and Ethan once he succeeded. But in today's world, starting a business isn't that easy. Leo had lost every connection and resource he once had. The people who used to flatter him now treated him with cold disdain. Unable to secure a loan and burdened with a criminal record, he turned to shady underground lenders. Predictably, he lost everything. Desperate and cornered, Leo went to look for Isabella, hoping she'd take him in out of old affection. But Isabella had long since moved on. She'd found another powerful backer. When Leo showed up at her door uninvited, he was beaten and thrown out, one of his legs broken in the process. With debt collectors on one side and enemies closing in on the other, Leo saw no way out. In the end, he tried to kill himself by burning charcoal in his rental apartment. Even in death, he managed to cause trouble. His landlord had to deal with the mess. They said when the police investigated his death, they found a suicide note on his desk. In it, he cursed me, Ethan Hayes, and Isabella Reed, wishing us all miserable deaths. When I heard the news, I simply smiled. Who cares what he thought?
Bites, and then a few seconds later is confused why yes, yeah. That sounds exactly like cats, yeah. Oh, that's sort of like Aoife, honestly. Aoife, like, she didn't used to, but more recently, in the last few years, she really is very, like, she's very specific about what she wants, and she will let you know by hissing and not really biting, but, like, she'll come around and, like, you know, and you're like, okay, copy. But then she'll be like, she's got her limits. She'll let you know where they are. She won't hurt you, but she'll let you know. Hi, Wheel. How you doing today? Hi, Demetrius. Heartburn can mess with your voice. Okay, yeah. I don't experience it very often. I don't know that I could tell you the last time I did. But, yeah, really, really weird. It's been like the last few days. I don't know I was like, probably stress.